Well, here we go. It is another Pittsburgh Hockey Now live chat. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski here on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and everywhere else in between. I suppose if the sound is not screwed up, this will also be released as a podcast on the No Pucks Given platforms, including Odyssey. Thanks for joining us. So, honest to goodness, I finished up my day's work at around 4 o'clock, and bear in mind, I start, you know, um, well before 8 a.m., usually before 7 a.m., actually around 6 a.m. So when I got done at 4 o'clock today, and with the crazy weekend we had, oh, a nap was in order. And I must tell you, I lost all trains of thought for this live chat. I mean, it just clean sweeped me to the point where, like, wait, what were we going to talk about on this chat? So here's what we're going to do. There is a changing dynamic with, I think, within this Penguins team, especially without Erik Karlsson on the ice. X's and O's wise, everything that I've sort of taken for granted, or everything that should be happening, now it's all going to get a little bit different because the Penguins aren't going to have a thoroughbred on the back end. And I actually, if you read the Penguins one timers, and I'm actually going to post that link right now. Here, I'm going to Penguins one timers. I did have, the start of a solution. And I say the start of a solution because my little trade proposal, trade idea, is not to replace Erik Karlsson, but to begin to replace Erik Karlsson. So that is very important to note. But also, Evgeny Malkin's health. Got a little nugget there in the one timers. A few other things as well. In fact, let me take a look. What did I write just a few hours ago? I also had another pretty good chat with Artur Shilovs. He seems to be opening up a little bit, and we had a little talk about goaltending and why you will never see him playing street hockey goalie. He's a good guy. I suppose part of that changing dynamic for the Penguins is also at center. I will tell you off the top of the show, I don't understand the entire Tristan Brose rubber band situation where he's called up for a day, arrives, participates in the morning skate, doesn't play that night because Brian Rust was very predictably able to go, gets returned the next day. I look at that a little bit oddly, and I look at that suspect because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why? I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. Tristan Brose gets a little bump in the paycheck spending a day on the NHL roster. I'm sure he doesn't mind that. He does deserve some NHL time, as Ben Kindle has begun to struggle a little bit lately. Wouldn't it behoove the Penguins to give Kindle a break? The alternative is to put Kevin Hayes in that spot. And believe me, I know how you all feel about that. So my thought is, well, hey, right there was, in fact, Tristan Brose. Why not 1, 2, 3 games there in the middle? So if you're asking if my radar is up and my antenna are up, like, is there a situation here? Do they not think that highly of Brose? I'm starting to wonder just a wee little bit. And I want to make sure I note that entire little Tristan Brose for Scott. Can you guys do me a favor? I need you guys to do 2 things for me. One, monitor the sound because they sounded pretty good here. But I didn't change internet providers. The other folks wanted like a 10 to 15-minute conversation with me. The computer called a couple times, like like I'm in the Penguins locker room, and the other company's computer calls to verify my appointment. I'm like, just send me a text, send me an email, or just you know what? Here's the deal. I confirmed it online. Show up and put it in. So then another customer service woman calls back like the next morning and was like, "Oh, well, your appointment didn't go through." I'm like, "Well, why?" "Well, to do that, we'd need to go through a process to confirm it's you." I'm like, "It's me." Like, "Well, this process will take 10 to 15 minutes." I'm like, "Good riddance." I guess I'm just not going to switch internet providers for them. What? I was like, ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? Show up, put it in. This is how the world works. I order, you supply. But they had all kinds of hoops to jump through. So, quite frankly, Dan doesn't have the patience for any of that stuff. So, I've kept all of the browser windows closed. I've kept my computer, bare bones here. In fact, I'm closing some other windows just to make sure, including where I make the post game graphics and such. Hang on, let me do that because I didn't even think to do that. So now we're back to square. The other thing I sort of wanted to get into, and let me see what was the title of the show. Oh, anyway. I forgot. And it was changing. Things you don't want to know. And we're going to save that for about the 20 or 30-minute mark, because I'm guessing some of your questions will get there as well. So let's do this. Let's just dive right in. This is probably my last one of these for a little while, because I'm on the road next week, the trip out west. And if I'm being honest, I think I'm getting a little bit overexposed. I think I'm doing too much. I think I'm putting out too much. I think you and I are having too many conversations to the point where you're like, I'll catch the next one. So we're going to probably take a little bit of a break, just to avoid me being so overexposed. Here's something you don't see. From Kilgill, as a Rangers fan, I wish we had your GM. Wait, do you know my GM? Oh, you mean the Penguins GM? That's interesting, because Toronto fans still dump on the Penguins for having their GM. Will Meyer Gallant be starting tomorrow against Philadelphia? I don't know. I'm not sure he's a fighter. Like, I'm not sure he's a scrapper. I'm not sure he's a guy who wants to drop the gloves. Hopefully not. For those of you, Meyer Gallant was signed today to a one-day contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins as part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And so the big limo rolls up, gets the contract, gets to meet the players. Let's go to Gaming Oddity. Hey, Dan, question. With all of Pittsburgh's draft picks and the two-headed monster in the twilight of their careers, do the Pens draft for centers the next few drafts? NHL teams, Oddity, don't necessarily zone in on positions, because hockey's draft, you're drafting 18-year-olds. Generally speaking, you're trying to take the best player available who will get there. Now, there are exceptions, like if you're really looking for defensemen and, there are capable defensemen in that slot, you might veer that way. In terms of centers, I suppose, well, actually, no, I'm going to tell you this. The Penguins' cupboard is still kind of bare. They've got Bill Zonin, who can play center. I know he's doing pretty well now that he's finally back from another injury in the queue. I think Will Horkoff is developing as a winger. I don't know what they have in Tanner Howe. Even if I did know before serious knee injury and surgery. I certainly don't know now. I mean, how he progresses now. You'd think a guy who's 20 years old would bounce back from knee surgery to 100%, but it's not always the case. So I don't know what they have with Tanner Howe. I no longer know what they have with Harrison Brunick. I thought I did. We all thought we did, and then things went sideways. If Brunick can get back to that level, we kind of know there. But the Penguins still don't have a lot in the pipeline. So if there's a player who pops up at the NHL draft on their board that they are confident will make the show, I don't think position is going to matter. Having said that, now here's I think if the tie might go to a center, right? If there's two players or three players, okay, which one's the center? I definitely think that might be a little bit of a consideration, just because you definitely need centers to win. You can have really good. I mean, look at Columbus, look at Minnesota for years, just sticking their tongue in the empty peanut butter jar, trying to find something. Marcus Johansson and Freddie Gaudreau have been top six centers in Minnesota over the last couple or a few years. And Columbus has been, they got lucky with Sean Monahan, but they were just rolling the dice there, and they still really don't have anything close to upper tier top six centers. So, yeah, you definitely want centers to win, and I think a tie would go to the center. Will Rockstar says on the edge of his seat. Yeah, honestly, I have no idea where I'm going with this show. I woke up 15 minutes ago. The alarm went off. I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Yo, Dan, how are you? It's been a while. I'm very impressed with Chinakhov, says Michael Thompson. I think there's plenty of reasons to be happy with Chinakhov. I don't know if I'm entirely impressed with him. I think he needs to be a bit more aggressive in the offensive zone. I think he needs to create his own offense and opportunity a bit more, at least to be successful. His complete game, though, has come as a little bit of a surprise to me. How well he works in the defensive zone and how adaptable and structured he is in the neutral zone. So there's definitely a whole lot to build on. And oh boy, that wrist shot, huh? When he let that, he scored that shootout goal on Tuesday night. We in the arena thought it hit the post or was a save because it was in so fast and out. We thought it hit the goalie or hit the post because it couldn't have possibly gone all the way into the net and all the way back out like it did. It wasn't like he hit the back bar of the net. He hit the bottom stuffing and it still came rocketing out. Boy, does he have a wrist shot. No question about it. Make a note of that here for Scott, too. Does somebody else want to do this for me? Whenever I talk about a topic, you have to note it. and I'll give you a free PHN subscription. What has Rockstar been saying for 81 weeks? Not sure what you're saying about that, Will. All right, the sound is good. Sound is good. Okay, I'm looking down at the bottom just to make sure that nobody updated there. Let's Barnes 2. Hey, Dan, Malkin seemed to be struggling at wing. I know he scored the goal yesterday. Should he be back at center with Mantha and Brazeau? Is the sample size too small? Can I say I don't know? And genuinely mean it. I have been a proponent of Malkin at wing for some time. I kind of think if he were to play wing, he should be playing wing, left wing, right wing with Sidney Crosby. Yeah, he certainly, Obviously, the entire team is struggling to create offense right now, not just Evgeny Malkin. So, in that sense, perhaps this is a little bit skewed that, we're watching an entire team struggle. Watching Malkin on the ice, he cuts to the center just reflexively. He goes to the middle. I don't know if his shoulder is 100%. Can he not take faceoffs? He only took one last night. Chinakhov took the other, where um, Novak and I honestly, yeah, where Kindle got moved off the dot. The point is that, do you stick with it? I don't know that Dan Muse has a choice in the matter. If he does have a choice, I might do what you do with any talented winger and do some center shopping. Try him with different centers to see what works best. And then, having said all of that, I don't know. It sure would be tempting to pull the plug on all of that and put him back in the middle, especially as you're not scoring goals. 2 goals in 3 games. That is enough to test any coach's patience and mettle, to watch him just unplug everything and say, go back to the way it was. All right. Michael Thompson, happy Rust is back when Novak is on Sid's line. That doesn't do so well. Novak just doesn't seem to play the way Sid likes. I don't know. Once again, listen, Michael, I think you're stretching there a little bit, because Novak actually did play some really good games besides Sidney Crosby. That's actually what jump-started his entire season, was being elevated to Crosby's line. Was that just after Sweden, or even in Sweden when they finally made that change? I mean, don't forget that Connor Dewar was up there before Tommy Novak was. Yeah, that was definitely in Sweden that they made the change. And Novak reeled off a bunch of really strong games. That allowed Dan Muse the confidence to put him, in the middle 6 center spot, and it allowed Novak the confidence to play, continue that play. He's not Brian Rust, though. And where you really see Brian Rust's contributions are in the dirty areas, along the wall, at the net, in the corners. He just makes things go, not just by winning pucks. Lots of guys can win pucks in those dirty areas, but then Rust's offensive push after winning the puck. Because in that moment, now the ice opens up. Now you're behind the defenseman. Now everything is yours. Rust does very well with that time and space that he's created. Novak obviously doesn't do that, and doesn't do that very well. So if you're saying he doesn't play well with Sid, I would quibble with that. But, if we're comparing him to Brian Rust here, if that's what were necessary to make a balanced lineup, that would be a pretty good thing, actually, if they had to put Novak with Crosby. All right. Drizzy. Drizzy sent me a note this afternoon about, why there was no 1 o'clock chat. Like, what am I going to do for 5 hours? Sorry, Drizzy. I was still at Penguins practice. I was still at the UPMC Center, UPMC Lemieux, for till 3 o'clock. Anyway, General Manager Kyle Dubas, rebuild must continue. My thoughts on asset management. And Drizzy has gone on record numerous times in praising Dubas's asset management. No need for Sheloffs and Skinner. Kulak and Mantha have to still be on the block. Not sure I like the idea of re-signing Mantha Noise. I think some of you all get ahead of the process here. You assume by, turning the page means a blank page, and someone who's 20 years old are going to step in and also be as good as Anthony Mantha. Or if they're not as good right away, they will be. That's not kind of how, I mean, in an ideal world, yes, but we don't live in those sorts of ideal worlds, and the Penguins don't have this row and this, army of players ready to march in and take over next year. You might have one or two more prospects join the roster next year. I suspect Harrison Brunick will spend a good year in the American Hockey League. I believe Will Horkoff, when he gets here, will have to do some good work on his skating. That's probably going to take most of a year in the AHL. Don't know yet about Bill Zonin. Really liked him. I really liked him in July. Obviously, I didn't get to see him in the fall against the men. So I don't know what they've got there. And so when you start talking about getting rid of Anthony Mantha and replace him with what? Right? That's where we are with this entire thing. You want to get younger and better and set up for the future. That's being done. It's just, why discard good pieces? You don't throw away your good winter coat until you have another one. And you can't just go to the store and buy a new young player. Brandon Rickner. Dan, what are your feelings? Yeah, I'm going to... What are my feelings on our playoff odds? Are they just not consistent enough to be vying for a spot? And if not, at what point do you think they make the first call to sell? Well, I do think I like their playoff odds. I mean, they took Tampa Bay, the best team in the East, if not the second best team in the NHL. They took Tampa Bay to the mat on Tuesday without Erik Karlsson, which is a huge loss for the Penguins. I understand that Tampa Bay didn't have Braden Point, doesn't have Victor Hedman in their lineup, and they lost defenseman Erik Cernak there for a bit. Yet the Penguins are playing well. I don't know that I have seen a team win as many games that they shouldn't have, lose as many games that they should have won, and be in this position. The hockey gods are just almost rolling the dice with them on a nightly basis, regardless of how they play on the result. It really feels like their play is disconnected from the result. It's kind of crazy. They are at a 57% chance to make the playoffs. And here's why I think they do. I want you to zoom out now on the rest of the Eastern Conference. The New York Rangers, stuck in the mud. The Ottawa Senators are going through hell up there. Linus Ullmark, I think, started skating yesterday. So he should be back, but they're being torn apart by external factors, and it's just it's not a good scene up there. New Jersey couldn't be in worse straits. There again, internal problems just sort of tearing apart the team and killing their results. I don't think Philadelphia is better than the Penguins. So that leaves you with the Penguins certainly being one of the 8 best teams in the Eastern Conference. That's just what I'm looking at. The funny thing is, I wonder now about Columbus with Rick Bowness behind the bench. For whatever reason, it just was kind of obvious to me that Dean Evason was not, it wasn't working. You can't blow as many big leads as they have. And Columbus sort of made the Penguins look tame in that regard, how many big leads they've given up and how often they have done that. If they can fix that, they could easily get into the playoff race. Detroit's already there. So that's kind of our little whirl around the East. Yeah, the Penguins should make the playoffs. Unless somebody comes to the door with a really good offer for Brian Rust or a really good offer for Rickard Rakell, or I suppose a really good offer for Erik Karlsson. Yeah, Penguins should make the playoffs. And as I've said a few times now to you, you've come this far. Why would you sell now? Sell in the summer, because Rakell and Rust have 2 years after this year. Erik Karlsson has 1 year after this year. You can go crazy in the summer. Sell all you want. At this point, you've come this far, though. I feel like Sean Astin in the Goonies. Chester Copperpot. He didn't make it this far. I think on that note, we're going to take a little break here for the Odyssey Podcast Network. And on the video side, we keep going. On the podcast side, we're going to take this little break. It is No Pucks Given. It is the Penguins live chat here on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. And we're back on the No Pucks Given Penguins live chat. I am Dan Kingerski. Okay, let's get back into the questions here. Centers are always your best players. Well, at least that's how a really good team is constructed. Minnesota, by the way, is sort of upsetting that hockey. What's the right word? Theorem? Corollary? Because their best players are on the wing. Kirill Kaprizov, so to speak. All right, Parker. How does Chinakhov playing with Russian legend like Gino affect him? I don't think it affects him at all. Look, he's 24, 25 years old. 25, 20, well, he's 24, 25 years old. He's seen Malkin up close now for a handful of years, played against him, played against the best in the league. I don't think he's in any way starstruck or wow, that's Evgeny Malkin. I have to pass him the puck. He should be old enough to get over that. He should be hungry enough to want to establish himself. The funny thing is, I wonder if those two start talking Russian around their center. If like Tommy Novak's like, whoa, 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 hey, English boys. Or Ben Kendall just starts looking at him as they go on in Russian. I'm sure that's probably happened 1 or 2 times. Obdurate. Hey, Dan, where would Kasperi Kapanen slot into the Penguins lineup if he was still on the team? That is so hard for me to answer because he was given so many opportunities with the Penguins. I mean, they were doing everything they possibly could for him. But I suppose, where would Kapanen fit? Third line winger? He wouldn't fit on the fourth line. And I wouldn't, at this point, separate Malkin Chinakhov. Sure as heck wouldn't put him on the top line. So I guess by process of elimination, that's the only answer I can give you. Gable Fisk out there in Las Vegas. What's next in the Hoffman approval process? That's actually a really good question. I was asking around about that this week. There is not another Board of Governors meeting scheduled, so this will have to be done sort of special order just for this. You know what? I was a little bit angry, but I've come to understand how the game is played. I broke the news a week before it happened that the sale was still moving forward. That was a little bit of a big coup for Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Because you noticed all of the national guys had the story. And I don't think people at PPG Paints Arena, or I don't think the Penguin sources are picking up the phone and calling all the national guys. You get what I'm laying down there? that the local guys are not the ones clued in on this story, that the sources are very high level and they're going to just make one phone call or one text to one of the national guys and then the other to the other national guy. And then they magically all have it at the same time, too. You notice that? I am doing my best as a magician here not to give away trade secrets. I think you see what I'm saying, though. I might find out when you find out about the Hoffmans and the next step. I don't know that my source, who clued us into the continuing part of the sale, would indeed have any more than that. Could be. I try. What was the rest of your question here? Any possibility that they are going to be scrutinized extra hard because of what happened with Alex Murillo in Arizona? That's a really good question. And it is one I hope happens. I hope that the NHL goes through everybody who wants to buy an NHL team thoroughly, fine tooth comb, hard questions. Look me in the eye and tell me exactly what you would do in this situation. What do you want to do? Tell me why you are doing this. That's what I would do in this situation. Not just to avoid another Alex Murillo, to avoid another Jim Balsillie, to avoid another Boots Del Baggio, to avoid another John Riggs in Buffalo. Is it John Riggs? Yeah, the Riggs family in Coudersport, who bought the Buffalo Sabres. To avoid who was the owner of the Islanders before Alex Wong? Anyway, yeah, there have been far too many bozos who've gotten their hands on NHL teams. But I don't know. I don't know if the NHL is really. Go back to Sweden. I asked Gary Bettman if there was an or any updates on the Penguins sale. I didn't like his answer. Well, it's not really appropriate for us to comment. It's like, yes, it is. You're the league. But I digress. And he said they would just make sure it's going into good hands. I think we all have to sort of trust that indeed that they make sure it does go into good hands. Follow-up moment. What was your favorite Kapanen moment during his tenure with the Penguins? I think you misunderstand my job. I'm a beat writer. My job is to cover them. My job is to chronicle them. If they win or lose on most nights, I don't care so long as I can bring you a good story. That's what I care about. I can't say Captain and I went drinking and playing hopscotch in the park and had a grand old time. He was a player. He dealt with the media a few times, not extensively. It didn't work. They waived him, and I showed up for work the next day. I think we could be as dangerous as anyone in the East, says Rockstar, if we could get to the playoffs. But after hearing that Carlson and Malkin news, does it sound like we'll have the health to make a challenge? Well, there is 3 weeks in February where everybody gets to get healthy. Also, I don't know that Erik Karlsson is seriously injured, just has something that's going to take a couple or a few weeks to clear up. Beyond that, look, everybody is beat up and banged up because of this cockamamie schedule. Good gosh almighty, if you're going to the Olympics, move up the start of the season by 1 or 2 weeks. I get it, the NHL hates competing against the NFL. But in this case, you're starting in mid-October, you're still competing against the NFL. Just do it. Steer into the skid. Maybe by starting the season every year on October 1, you begin to make a big deal of it. Fans begin to know. And we don't have the situation where Tampa Bay was playing their sixth game in 10 nights. The Penguins are not much different. I mean, these bags under my eyes are from me chasing these goofballs all over God's creation, all over the country and the world this season. I mean, these guys are tired. They're professional athletes who travel, charter planes, four-star hotels, catered meals. They're beat up and worn out and tired. And yeah, so these Stanley Cup playoffs, maybe unlike any in a long time, will truly be a matter of attrition. And who can stay healthy, who can be healthy at the right time, very well might decide the Eastern Conference. Maybe the Stanley Cup as well. It just is, man. It's rough. Oop. I was trying to think of what time I took the break. I have to write this stuff down for myself. Michael Thompson says one positive note to be had is Letang seems to be turning the page and playing much better. Check out that Penguins one-timer that I linked to you here at the top of the show. Chris Letang and Brett Kulak in 196 minutes are the third best defensive pairing in the NHL in terms of goals against at 5-on-5. They've allowed only 5 goals, and nobody else has come close to that. When those two are on the ice together, the Penguins' goalie's save percentage is .933. They're doing really well in their own zone. And I asked Dan Muse about this today. It's funny you bring this up because I did want to write about it, and I wanted to get into the topic. So, Michael, I'm going to assume you read the Penguins one-timers. Muse was like, yeah, they're really playing a tight gap. They're taking away time and space. They're pouncing on their man on the puck and making it so that the other team doesn't get comfortable and have space for opportunity. But he also pointed out this: when you're allowing so few goals against, that also means you're doing something right with the puck. For all the wailing and the gnashing of the teeth, oh my God, the Tang is killing us! Ah! He wasn't, and he certainly isn't. Now that Letang and Kulak seem to have eliminated those catastrophic mistakes that were a bit of a problem in December, and look at them now. All right, let's go to Drizzy here. If Malkin resigns in the offseason, does that indicate to you what direction they are taking, or just a team legend being rewarded for many years of greatness? No, I don't think re-signing Malkin would be some grand signal or symbol that the rebuild is over. No, and it wouldn't be a reward for greatness either. What that would be the Penguins, Kyle Dubas, looking at Evgeny Malkin and saying, you can help us next year. So let's do this one more time. That's what it is. You can help us on the ice, in the locker room. You can improve us. We cannot find a better person at the money you're willing to work for. Let's do it. That's really what it comes down to. A very cold and calculating decision if and when the Penguins do re-sign Malkin. This shoulder thing's a little bit concerning. This could unravel everything. It could make him question. It could make the Penguins question. Let's see where it goes before we start talking contract terms. Raptor Overlord. I love it. If the Pens are going to make the playoff push, who do you think the Penguins would target around the deadline, if anyone? Well, Raptor, you're new around these parts, Raptor. So I'm going to tell you a little something. I'm a beat writer. And on Sunday, I published the 4 trade targets to watch for the Penguins. The thing is, none of them are really going to help in the immediate. I'm talking young players, Jacob Pelletier, Brad Lambert in Winnipeg, Ville Heinola in Winnipeg, in the Winnipeg system, Brendan Othman, New York Rangers. These are all young guys who might be able to be had. You are not going to see, absolutely not going to see, the Penguins drop draft picks and future capital on a rental forward. Just not happening. Because why would you do that? Sorry, my nose is itchy. You're not going to spend future assets at this point on the present. Kyle Dubas has been pretty clear on that. So who they target, you're not going to get your big trade deadline day acquisition. I mean, think of last year. Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn were the few days before the trade deadline. Luke Schenn said, hey, no, man, I'm not down with this. And the Penguins flipped him to Winnipeg. By the way, thank you, Luke Schenn, huh? Penguins fans should want to build that statue of Luke Schenn because that second-round pick from the Winnipeg Jets, who were really good last year, thinking they're going to be really good this year, drafting, in the back of the round, well, that pick very well might be 33rd overall. It might be the first pick of the second round, so essentially a first rounder. But that was the Penguins' big trade deadline acquisition last year. A guy that seemed to frustrate coaches, Michael Bunting, moving him along, getting a guy that they wanted to take a chance on, and a 35-year-old defenseman who they probably would have traded over the summer anyway. So, yeah, that's what you're going to see. You're not. I wish I could tell you. What's the PHN going to do during the 2-week layoff? Oh, I'll have content. I have not yet booked a vacation. I am thinking very seriously about just taking my butt to England for a week or even a few days more. There are some things I've always wanted to do over there. I've always wanted to go to Liverpool, not for soccer, but for the Beatles. I've always wanted to hike in some of the Scottish Highlands. Actually, I want to see some of the movie scenes for Highlander. I admit it. And, of course, some stuff in London. And my family traces ancestry back to this big estate. It's not quite a castle, but it's kind of a castle between Liverpool and Burnley called Gawthorpe Hall. And I've always wanted to see that too. So, but it's like taking a week-long vacation by yourself. It's like, But if I do that, I will be writing the entire time. That's for sure. Okay, let's see here. Any more trade rumors that I've heard? Do you have honey mustard? Let's go to Josh. With Karlsson down, any chance the Pens make the call for Dougie Hamilton? No. And here's why. The Devils will be able to get assets for Dougie Hamilton. They might not be able to get what they wanted, what they think he's worth, but they will get something in return. What does Dougie Hamilton do for the Penguins long term? Like next season, if I offered you Erik Karlsson working with Dan Muse or Dougie Hamilton, who are you going to take? Erik Karlsson, 10 of 10 times, right? So for that reason, as I say all this out loud, Rockstar, or actually Josh here, Hamilton does have great analytics. Great analytics. And the analytics community loves him. Would that sway Dubas? Would his numbers make Dubas add Hamilton as kind of insurance? I don't know. I don't see it. But then again, I didn't see Kyle Dubas going after Eric Carlson like he did. I thought that was superfluous. And it was for the first couple of years. Didn't work out even a little bit, but now it is. So I would say no, but there's more merit there than I gave it on first blush. I will concede that if Dubas thought he were able to move Carlson, like if he had something lined up, then Hamilton might become an option. What did the Penguins do? Let me check. Hang on, I just got a tweet from the Penguins. Oh, okay. It's merely just a regular tweet about their activities, not any news breaking. Let's go to Big Jim. Ooh, that sounds pretty good too, by the way. Big Jim's in the run. I haven't had a chicken parm hoagie from Big Jim's in years. Maybe I'll have to wrap this up early. Why is everyone ready to retire Gino Machino? How old was Gordie Howe when he decided to call it a career? How about Yager? People need to stop assuming they know what he wants. I tried to make that very point a couple of days ago when I wrote the column, Let's Talk About Evgeny Malkin's Future. In fact, I probably should bring that up for you. Where is my Gino Machino column? Hang on. I know it's here somewhere. There it is. So let's dive into this I think this is worth flushing out a little bit. Screen share, Malkin. Dun dun dun. Okay. My website too. I know some people have complained about that top bar being in the way of everything. I have the same problem. But the point is that it's so much easier for us to say, yeah, he has to retire. Yeah, he definitely should retire. And it's a whole lot harder to do it. I mean, think about this. I don't know if people understand just what a passion and what a love being able to play professional sports is. Think of how much you loved football, baseball, hockey, basketball at 10 years old. And imagine getting to do that for the rest of your life, or at least into adulthood, and getting paid fabulously to do so. And the joys and the success and the heartbreak, and it all is awesome as you get to live that life out in front of 18,000 people in the arena and millions more watching and cheering you on. To say that's addictive would be an understatement. To say it becomes you, it becomes who you are, would be accurate. And so, as these guys get to the end, it's so tough to say, okay, I'm done. I've had fun. Thanks guys. I'll see you around. The family level friendships that you build, the bonds, everything is so tough walking away from it. Wayne Gretzky, who did everything possible in his career, said the thing he missed was having pizza in the back of the bus with the boys and mess ripping on guys. And it's a life that I don't think people ponder because it's so far removed from everyday life. You live, I will hearken it back to my fraternity days in college, which was my great experience in life after being kind of stuck in a small high school where I was very different than almost everybody else. Coming to college and finding out there are other people like me with, ambitions and thinking and, and all of that and who could drink beer Buy the six pack some nights at once. And I just remember how great that was and how torn up I was over leaving it. Imagine like 15 years of that love, and you're just gonna okay, I'm done. 20 years. All right, yeah, that I'm not as good as I used to be. I should probably quit. Doesn't work like that. So Big Jim is exactly right. Uh, I think every player should leave kicking and screaming, wring every last drop out of that rag. And then when it's done, you take a deep breath and say, okay, it can go no more. But damn, that was a hell of a ride. That I think is, I think that's how it goes. And it's why I think Malkin comes back next year. That was a long answer, wasn't it? The Canucks are listening to offers for anyone on their roster, says Oddity. Who does Dubas take and for what assets? Well, they are selling their veterans. Okay, like Kiefer Sherwood, we're talking a first round pick here. Sure as hell not going to do that for a 30-year-old guy. 30-year-old guy who really didn't show up in the top six until recently. You're surely not going to take on Elias Pettersson's or Elias Pettersson's contract. What's he going to have next year? 6 more years at $11.5 million? Woo-hoo-hoo. Not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I know Washington really got lucky by getting Pierre-Luc Dubois. I know that worked out for them. But if you're rebuilding, why would you saddle yourself with something that might not work for 6 years? 11.5. That is a chunk of change. So I don't think the Penguins have any interest in Evander Kane. Tyler Myers. Yeah, I could be talked into Tyler Myers for a playoff run. I think Tyler Myers gets a really bum rap from Vancouver fans. Solid defenseman, shot blocker, actually physical. You know, that's as much as I got for you in terms of Vancouver. I've sort of been over that, and I just don't see the Penguins. I'm just going to put that on the screen for a second. I assume that's in reference to me going up to the Highlands. There can be only one. Have I seen what's on the Canucks roster? Pass. Let's see here. Rob Shoemaker, what is next for Matt Dumba? Getting out of Pittsburgh as fast as possible and trying to restart. That's all there is to it. See here. Cora Sites, I'm 60 years old with an average job, and retirement seems like death to me, so I can't imagine what it is for them. Well said. Men, when they retire, the downhill drop is... I can't tell you how many fat NHL players, former NHL players, I see around the press boxes here or there. Guys who were, speed skaters and power forwards or, hulking defensemen. They're now more egg-shaped after they retire. There's no reason to rush into retirement ever. Having said that, when I'm all done with this, the plan was in a couple of years that I was going to be done with all of this and the companies were going to be bundled up and sold and I was going to be able to cash out and all of that, move out to Vegas. I'd like to just keep covering the team, quite frankly, whether I stay in Pittsburgh and cover the Penguins, whether I go out to Vegas and pick that up or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, now don't get me wrong. After the if this all goes according to plan in a couple or a few years, I will not be writing 120 stories a month, working 80 to 100 hours a week. I will not be doing that anymore. But while I'm doing it, I might as well find some joy in it. And I feel you, Drizzy. Do you think Letang with 3 more years is going to age well? Of course not. Many are already complaining about him. I guess that's my point with Malkin. But Sid has 1 more, so I get Gino 1 more. This is the last year that matters. This is the last year that, the core has been together, the core. This is the last season that gets factored into any decision. I promise you that. I mean, if you need proof, business proof, last night's attendance was garbage. The Tuesday night attendance against the Tampa Bay Lightning, a really good team with Jake Gensel back in town, was absolute trash. There might have been 12,000 people there. So spare me the talk of, the Penguins have to win and people will show up. Well, that's obviously not the case. What do they have to do? Have indoor fireworks every night for people to show up? There was a good crowd after the holidays. I guess those were holiday ticket buys and presents that got them a bump. Otherwise, the Penguins' attendance is worse than Anaheim. So it's hard to make the case. Let's just say the Hoffmans come in. It would be very hard to make the case they have to keep the core together to sell tickets. People aren't buying tickets anyway. So I think, this is the end. This year is probably, maybe they all come back next year, but that's only for the benefit of the team, not any loyalty payments. That is truly by choice of the team, not the players if they're all together next year. Gable Fisk, we know about fat former NHL players. We've seen Keith Tkachuk on TV. Fair enough, man. I was thinking. There's a couple on TSN as well who haven't missed very many meals, and I'll leave it at that. I don't want to be calling people fat on a live chat. Keith Tkachuk should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way. Cena Rose says, I would take Drew O'Connor back. That's interesting. O'Connor out from under Mike Sullivan. What would that be like? Okay. Sure. I can get behind that. I don't know that I'd champion it, but I can get behind it. Oddity says, I was watching the Oilers game last night. I wonder what Jarry was thinking with that OT play that gave the Preds the win. I think just about every goalie who wants to play the puck has had that happen to them at some point, where you race out and realize, the opponent won the foot race. Now I'm stuck. Now I'm screwed. How many times did Marc-Andre Fleury do that? All right, NES Addict says, let's go Pens. Well, as we near the 1 hour mark, and it's 7 o'clock, and Dan hasn't had dinner on an off night. And in fact, I didn't even drink half my coffee. Didn't even put it in a cool mug for you. The Alcatraz metal mug is in the sink, and my Troy and Abed in the morning coffee mug is, well, it's somewhere in my house, I think. I hope. That's it, kids. I appreciate you all very much. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in the last call for questions. This is your last call for alcohol. We go rapid fire now. So if there's anything you want to dive into, here we go. It is the lightning round. From Jay Shaw, why do they use the same guys in the shootout all the time? Well, they used Chinikov on Tuesday. Well, you use Ricard Raquel and Sidney Crosby because, in fact, they are the best available. Chris Letang, his shootout prowess has really not gone well over the last several years. His backhand move doesn't open the goalie like it used to, and therefore he's not one of your best options. Ben Kindle, I know people think put Ben Kindle. Kindle was not really a shootout guy with the Calgary Hitmen either. It's not like they're hiding some great talent there. I told you this weeks ago, and it I was prophetic. I'm like, hey, Kevin Hayes doing the slow move. It'll work. It did work. But Kevin Hayes is not in the lineup and not going to be in the lineup with a fully healthy crowd. Although I wonder if in the next game or two you might see Hayes in for Ben Kindle. I think it's possible. But they don't use the same guys. They're trying, and I will tell you, Jay Shaw, they practice this. They were doing breakaways and shootouts at practice today, and the coaches are paying attention. So it's not as if there's somebody out there who is good at it, not being given a chance. I understand you're like, anybody is better than this. And the reality is, no, Sidney Crosby is still 37%, and Ricard Raquel is still in that same boat. It just seems that they both don't score at the same time. Okay, rapid fire. I don't see a spot for Rutger when he gets back now. That's going to be an interesting decision. Whether they send him back to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, whether they waive Kevin Hayes. Do you put Rutger McGroarty? Well, actually, no. Yeah, there isn't a spot for McGroarty. And so, barring injuries, I think he does return to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. He played well enough in his 16 games, but 3 points probably, you're going to give Chinikov that runway for sure. Drizzy, Shea has impressed me greatly, especially considering his salary. I've been trumpeting Ryan Shea now for over a year. He really he is blossoming with Dan Muse. Go back to some of the conversations that Shea and I had that we published of how he felt empowered by this new regime. He felt like they were encouraging him to find where that ceiling is. Go for it, find it, try it, do it. He's gritty in the defensive zone. Bobby Shea can take it around the perimeter in the offensive zone. He can lead the rush. Ryan Shea is a legit NHL defenseman. Now, is he top 4 guy worth big money? I don't know about that. But I certainly would like to have him on my team. He's certainly a second, third pairing guy. Get rid of the shootout, says Gaming. I hate it. Make it a 3-point win scoring system. You are not alone. I can't tell you what player I was talking to today. They're like, yeah, it used to be cool. It's like, and the player's like, can you imagine in these international tournaments where medals are decided by a shootout? I was like, well, the Europeans have soccer. They're used to that craziness. But I agree. The shootout was cool. It was it was really neat for several years, 5, 10 years. It has exhausted its life cycle. And part of that is the way the game has changed. The really skilled players who played a one-dimensional game are kind of being weeded out of the game. And so you have teams that stock up, load up on top 9 forwards, but maybe not that really skilled Euro guy who was brilliant in the shootout, or or the Phil Kessel types. Although Kessel wasn't great in the shootout, but you get where I'm going with that. The guys who might be shootout guys are sort of having to play defense, and there are less shootout players, and it's not that interesting. And it's also, even if it were that interesting, I think we're all over watching teams bust their butt for 65 minutes, especially with 3-on-3 overtime, only to have a backhand deke 1-on-1 win the game. All right, that is the final question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. It's a blast and it's a privilege to do this. So I suspect we'll talk again in a couple of weeks. Come back to the YouTube channel for the post game stuff. I might even miss the Seattle post game on Monday because it's an afternoon game and I am racing to the airport after the game, catching a flight to Vancouver, where I've got about an hour and 10 layover, presuming everything is on time. Then I fly to Calgary that night. Otherwise, I was going to miss practice the next day. And I will be the only one to cover the Seattle game and the practice the next day because nobody else could figure out the flight situation. And I'm rolling the dice and we're doing it and racing out after the game. Yeah. Mike says Eric Christensen comes to mind, one of those guys who wasn't that good on the 5-on-5, but really good in the shootout.